All right, I heard this story from Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Jacobson. I heard it a long time ago, 30 years ago, a long time ago. But it's a very touching story. In the World War II, there was what was called the Holocaust. And the Holocaust, the Nazis made a special effort to kill Jews. Right? Why they killed Jews is very simple, because they were evil people. And the Jews are the representatives of God, whether they know it or not. So they succeeded pretty well. They killed a lot of Jews. The generally accepted number is 6 million Jews. That's a lot of Jews. Some people say it wasn't so many. It was only 5 million, only 2 million. I don't understand what in the world these people get from that. But all right. So they suffered terribly. There was one Jew, and his name was Halberstrom. And he was, I forget his first name, unfortunately. He was the Rebbe of Kloisenberger, I guess Kloisenberger's sons, and the Kloisenberger Rebbe, he was called. He was a very, very genius person, a very tremendously kind person, a holy person, devoted. And his whole family was killed. His whole family. He had 11 sons, his wife, her family. He said it was about 200 people in his immediate family that were killed by the Germans. And somehow or other, he got out. Just as a parenthetical statement, there's a rabbi in Chabad, and his name is Rabbi Nissim Mengel. And he was in the Holocaust also. He has the number written. When he was taken in when he was young. There's stories about him also. Maybe if I remember, I'll tell you about that. And people ask him, where was God in the Holocaust? He said, where was God in the Holocaust? He said, God was everywhere. He said it was impossible. The conditions that were there in the concentration camps, that it was anybody that got out alive, it was just a total miracle. It was a total miracle. Why there was so much suffering? Okay, Mashiach will answer that. But nevertheless, the people had to go for in bitter cold, below zero weather, and just the pajamas. They had nothing to eat. There was no vitamins. There was no, okay. Anyway, so the Kloisenberger Rebbe, after the war was finished, so he was taken to one of these recuperation camps with a lot of other Jews. I don't know if it was in Germany or in England, wherever it was. And the soldiers that took them out, English soldiers, American soldiers, they didn't exactly know what to do with all these Jews. A lot of them were not Jews themselves. And all the Jews that were taken out, all of them were 90% crazy, 98% crazy, 50% crazy from the things that they saw. They saw people, anyway. So when Yom Kippur came, and not only there was all sorts of different types of Jews. There were Jews that were not religious, and there were Jews that were anti-religious, and there were communist Jews, and there were Bundist Jews, and there were all these different types of Jews. But anyway, they were all Jews, and they all knew that they suffered because they were Jews. So they all got out, and they were in these recuperation camps. They gave them food to eat, they gave them a place to sleep, and everything, and they gave them some sort of counseling. I don't know. But when Yom Kippur came, so they decided they were going to make a prayer. They were going to make the services for Yom Kippur. This is where the story begins. This is where I heard the story. Right? So they made a big tent or whatever. They emptied out some big rooms, and there was maybe 500, who knows, 1,000 Jews. How many Jews that there were there? And they all went in. They brought for them machzorim, prayer books. And one of the Jews had been a cantor, so they made him a cantor. And they decided that the rabbi of Kloisenberg, he would be the Rebbe. He would give a speech, whatever it was. He would be a Rebbe. So it would be as, returning to normal as possible. So one of the prayers of Yom Kippur is Al Chet. I request forgiveness, God, Al Chet, for the sin. For the sin I sin with my eyes. For the sin I sin with my hit your chest. On the sin I sin with my eyes. I sin with my azut metzach, with how do you say, with chutzpah, with my feet running to do bad, and so that was one of the prayers. It's more or less in the beginning. Started prayer. Some in the middle of this prayer, Al Khair, on the sin that I sinned because of my eyes. And then some Jew stood up and he started screaming out, I'm not going to say this prayer. I'm not going to say this prayer. I'm not going to say the prayer. And everybody said, sit down. We all had troubles. We all saw the same thing. So I'm not going to say the prayer. So he said, I have to say on the sin that I sinned with my eyes. I didn't lift up my eyes for 3 years. That I had a brazen forehead. I was brazen. The Germans, they were brazen. My feet ran to do bad. The Germans, they were the Nazis. They were the ones that were running to do bad. I have to ask for forgiveness. If anybody should say Al Khait, God should say Al Khait. God, he should ask forgiveness from us. He's the one that sinned. He gave the Nazis the power to do this. And he sat down. So someone said to the Kloisenberger Rav, answer him. Give him an answer. So the Kloisenberger Rav turned to him and he said, you're right. And everyone burst out crying. And after they finished their crying, they've been used to crying, right? They cried already for 3 years. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe said, but I'll tell you why I said, Al Khait, my sin. Forgive me, God, forgive me. He said, in the camp where I was, the guards were unusually cruel. And they would make us early in the morning stand in lines, order. And they would pick one Jew and they would give him a brick and make him run up a ladder or something or whatever, a fire escape, run up, run down. And then he would come down, they would put another brick and then another brick and another brick. And he had to keep doing this and the other bricks until I don't know what the end point was, until he fell or until, of course, everybody was, 90% starving to death. They made everyone watch. Everybody had to watch. And anybody that did not watch, they would beat or they would kill or whatever, they would torture. And so in the nighttime, when everyone went to sleep, everyone went to sleep with the same prayer on their lips. God, please make it that I die in my sleep. Because even if we survived the ordeal, we had to work in the cold. There was just suffering and pain and misery, constant, impossible to bear pain and suffering all day. And so everyone would go to sleep with the same prayer on their lips. God, please let me die in my sleep so I don't have to suffer. He said, and that's why I'm saying, God, forgive me for my sin. I said that prayer also. I should have said, God, please take us out of here. Free us. But we were thinking so small that just wanted to stop the suffering that I was unable to think big in the big picture, to think something good. And that's why I'm saying, God, forgive me that I didn't think good thoughts in this bed. So that's what we have to learn, to think good. And even in the worst situations, a good thought will bring good world. Have a good day with Mashiach now. See you, God willing, on Sunday at 8:15. Shalom u'bracha.
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, everyone.